guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is another book review and it's going to be Schindler's Ark by Thomas Keneally. If you didn't know, Schindler's Ark is the book that inspired the film Schindler's List, and this has been on my TBR shelf for at least 5-6 years. I want to say it's been there for a very long time, and I think just because I thought it was going to be quite a heavy book, a lot of dates and facts in there, and ultimately for any book surrounding the Holocaust I feel you have to be in the right frame of mind to pick it up. And I've actually been to Poland and been to Schindler's factory and gone round the museum, yet before reading this I could not remember and I could not tell you anything about Oskar Schindler. And that's not because it wasn't impactful or I didn't take anything in at the time, purely because I have a bad memory. And so that's the thing with me, I have to keep reminding myself, refreshing and reading things to keep learning really, because I will lose the information. And I was maybe, how old was I? I was maybe about 15, 16 at the time when I did go around it, so maybe I wasn't taking in things as much as I would do with an adult brain today. I don't know, but I knew I wanted to read this, and I've not watched Schindler's List because, again, it's a harrowing film. We all know that. You don't have to watch it to know what the content is, and I would probably like to watch it at some point, but again, it's a heavy film. Got to be in the right frame of mind for it. So I thought I would read about it. So this is written by Thomas Keneally, so it is sort of the third person account on Oskar Schindler. It's told with the help of lots of first-hand accounts from people that knew Oskar, whether it be they worked with him or he helped to protect them during the war. So if you don't know, Oskar Schindler was a German industrialist. He had a factory in Poland that helped to make like pots, I want to say, like metalware and things, and mostly I guess it was aimed to help contribute to the war effort. And at some point Oskar Schindler decided he was in a position where he could help hundreds, thousands of Jewish people by employing them into his factory. And so they then had something credible about them. They had something that showed that they were worth staying alive for. That is kind of where Schindler's List came about, because there was this ghetto in Poland and he had sort of put out this list of people from the ghetto that he wanted to come and work for him. And so if you were on Schindler's List, that was a good thing for you, because it meant you could go and work within his factory, and it sort of saved you from getting on the trains and going ultimately to Auschwitz. And so this book is really interesting because, you know, he's a German. Most of the time when we think of the war, we think most Germans were against the Jews, and that's not the case. He, you know, was very close, working and friends with people that were in sort of the SS and the Nazi party, yet he decided to help save hundreds of people, and mainly he was able to do that because of the high position he was in with his factory. He had a lot of money. He could pay his way and bribe his way through, you know, not only helping others but helping himself. This book, I think he was arrested 2 or 3 times, so he was able to sort of bribe his way in a way out of that as well. And when I was thinking of, you know, what star rating am I going to give this book, I was like, okay, well, it's not been, in a sense of like reading it and how quickly I read through it, it's not been my favourite non-fiction World War II Holocaust related book. But how can I give this story any less than 5 stars? It's a story that is fundamental to remembering the Holocaust. If you go to Israel and you go to Yad Vashem, which is all about the Holocaust and a memorial and museum, they very highly honour Oskar Schindler, and he's been acknowledged very highly by the Israelis for helping Jewish people. And so I want to just share a few little facts that I learned from this book. I've read a lot of World War II and Holocaust books, but I still feel like in any book that you pick up you can learn something more. There's no point where I think, well, I already knew that, I don't need to read this book, you know. I did GCSE history. I just wanted to share some facts that I learned and, you know, some things that they mention within this book. So Oscar actually ended up taking over a apartment that belonged to a Jewish family, and he was very much aware of this and who he was taking it from, and so he was able to, I guess, a lot of people, at the end of the day, yes, he probably had a choice of where he resided, but I'm not quite sure how it worked, whether the government, you know, said, you know, this is an apartment for you, have it, and, you know, he wasn't forced to take it, I imagine, but he took it, and he knew that he had displaced his family, and so he hunted and tracked down this Jewish family that he had displaced, and he gave them a hefty sum to sort of recuperate some of what they lost, I guess, which I think is quite admirable, because many people would have just moved in and not thought twice about what or who they had taken from. And what I didn't know or couldn't remember was that before they ultimately decided on, I guess, the final solution and sending people to concentration camps and using the cyclone gas, there was a time where they thought they were going to ship all Jewish people, and I guess gypsies and there was a period of time where it was considered that they might send all Jews and gypsies and gay people to the island of Madagascar, which is crazy to think about. But even though these employees were working for Oscar, he did feed them much better than if they obviously just lived off food from the ghetto, and, you know, they were able to be more nourished. And even though, yes, they were working for him, it was nowhere near as bad as, you know, going to a labour camp or a concentration camp and having to work for the Nazis. So he very much helped them, and there was an aspect, I can't remember if it was in his factory or when he then moved to, he had to transport everything to a labour camp, which again was something I didn't know. I thought it was just his factory he had, but no, they made him move everything to a labour camp, and he ended up basically sabotaging his own factory's work. And he did it very cleverly. So he made it look like it was just a mechanical error and not a human error. So he did, again, protect the people that were working for him. It's a crazy statistic that he ended up spending, I think, 50,000 zlotys, if I'm saying that correctly, a month on like black market food and resources for his employees. So he really wasn't making a profit from his factory. I mean, he was probably making some money, but he was providing and spending a lot of it on medical supplies, food resources for his employees and keeping them safe. And I'm not saying Oscar was perfect as a character, or, I mean, he is a person. You know, he had affairs. He had about 3 different women lined up, and so, you know, he wasn't sort of the role model, but he obviously did have good attributes to him. And later in the book we learn more about his wife and how she helped in the labour camp to provide sort of, she became sort of a nurse in a way, and she also helped to get them medication, she helped them get new glasses, so she was also a big factor in helping people, which I think when you think of Schindler's List you do just think of Oscar. So it was interesting to see that there's always a woman, isn't there, behind the man. And when you go on Wikipedia and obviously many other very credible sources, it does say that no one was killed under and in Oscar's camp, which I think was called Brinlitz. It's probably slightly different from that, but yeah, when you look at the statistics, no one was killed under his reign, and the only people that died were, you know, from sort of natural causes in a way, or if they came into his camp bringing something and a condition they already had. And so I want to finish by talking a little bit about the end of the book and coming towards the end of the war, obviously the camp got liberated, and Oscar knew that his position was going to very much change. Even though he was such an ally for all of these people, he was still a position of power. He was still the sort of owner of the factory and the munitions and running of the camp, and so he knew that his position was going to change and he was going to be, in a sense, I guess, in trouble. And so he sort of gives this big speech to all of the employees and the workers, and basically, you know, tells them this is it, this is the end of it, and go free. And one of the people that lived in the camp, he actually ended up melting down one of his gold fillings and making it into a ring for Oscar, which I think was such a poignant moment, because he's given so much to all of these people: food, resources, medical care, and now he's accepting a gift from them. And that continued afterwards, because for the rest of his life he did have to rely on all of these people that he once provided for. He moved across seas and then back to Israel, and he was always having to rely for food and for money on these people. I guess, I don't really know why, because in today's society he would have been, you know, he is a hero to so many Jewish people, and yet he was in a much more poorer position. I don't know whether he had debts to pay or there was ransom out for his rest, I'm not sure, but it seemed like he always was relying on the people that he once cared for. So that's my review on Schindler's Ark. I think if you read any book in your life about World War II or the Holocaust, this is definitely one to put on your TBR if you've not already read it. I'm glad that I've read it now, especially, like I said, I've been to the factory. I would like to go and revisit Poland and probably the factory and Auschwitz again one day. Probably take Darren this time, you know, before I went with my dad, and so have it sort of, I'm about 12 years on from when I went before, and so I feel I have a different sort of perspective on it, but also it's something, I mean, I will never forget my experience there, but it's something I know Darren wants to go and experience, and to go back to Oscar's factory now that I've sort of read more about him, I think would be a really interesting thing to do. So let me know if you have read it or if you've watched the film, and if you've got other sort of World War II or Holocaust recommendations on books, fiction or non-fiction, let me know. I have read quite a few in my time, but I'm always open to reading more, and yeah, I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.